Thank you guys so much for tuning in this week for Tuesday Tips with Fallon. This week I'm going to be covering different grits of sandpaper. And I remember when I first got started, I think the only thing I used was 220 grit sandpaper, which as I've become more of a professional, I've realized that's probably not the best route to go. So I've broken it down so that you understand when you need to use a certain grit from beginning to end in the process of painting furniture. So as I've become more experienced and honestly through a lot of trial and error, I have realized that the cheap route is not the best way to go. You want to go with a nice industrial strength sandpaper, and I'm going to show you what my favorite is, and I'll also link it into my blog so that you can just directly go to it and see what I prefer. Projects typically start with a coarse sandpaper, then move to a more fine sandpaper as the project evolves. You want to start your project with a coarse sandpaper, anywhere from 40, 60, or 80 grit, and what I have right here is actually 40 grit, which is used for heavy or rough sanding and to help remove scratches or imperfections. The next grit that you want to focus on is the medium grit, which can be anywhere from 100 to 120 to 150. What I have here is actually 150, and it just gives the paint or stain enough to grip onto without making the piece too smooth or too rough. The next group is the 180 to 220 grit sandpaper. This is used for fine sanding, and what I have here is 220, which is primarily what I use. It is used as a sanding finish or to sand in between coats to prepare for the next coat. Alright, and the last group of sandpaper is the 320 grit to 400 and up. I normally use 400, and I like to use sandpaper that I can use with my hands so that I control it really well. It's extra fine, and it's always used toward the end of the project. It just gives it a nice smooth finish and makes it beautiful in the end. Thank you so much for tuning in this week for Tuesday Tips with Fallon. I know sandpaper can be pretty overwhelming at times, so hopefully this helps kind of narrow it down for you and educate you a little bit to help you have the most beautiful and smooth finish in the end.